Welcome back, everyone, to our second best headlines. This is a new format where we are talking about the week's news, trying to keep everyone up to date with some of the most interesting headlines going on around the country related to education. Today, I am joined by Keisha King of Florida. Keisha has been a longtime friend of B.E.S.T, works extremely hard on the issue of parental rights in education, school choice. And Keisha, I believe you're working with a school that is looking to come up there in Florida as well, right?
No, well, I work with different people who are trying to get kids a better education. I toured Cornerstone Academy recently. It's a charter school here in Jacksonville, Florida, which is absolutely no woke, no woke stuff. So I just wanted to show parents that there are places that they can find that keep the woke stuff out. But I'm the senior director with Moms for America, founder of the Mass Exodus Movement, and host of the Keisha King Show.
Yes, and please be sure to check out Keisha and her work. And of course, you know him. We are being joined again by Adam Rizzieri out in Texas. Adam is a radio host. He is a best dad, and he is our new national advisor for the Best Dads and Dudes Leadership Program that we are so excited
Hey there.
to be starting here. Adam, anything you want to say before we get started?
No, I'm great to talk to you guys today. Keisha, super excited to connect with you as well. Zach, you're giving me a little bit too much credit. I think radio host might be an embellishment. Like I'm more of a big tech commentator, which I think really commentator is just kind of a funny word in general. Like I'm about to start commentating, but I'm really just a small business owner and just a guy who's really concerned and wants to make our future a better place, a place that I think our kids deserve to have, is just kind of that launching pad to get from childhood to adulthood. And got my first son on the way coming October 12th.
Yay.
But who's counting the days, right? And so I'm just really excited to talk about topics that really matter to parents and just do my part to kind of carve forward a future that's a great one.
Well, that's all great. And that's why we like keeping you around, Adam. You know you're in it for the right reasons. So today we have a few interesting topics to discuss. Keisha brought a very interesting story up about the expansion of school choice in Arizona, a big legislative victory in the state. We're just waiting on Governor Ducey to sign it. So Keisha, do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so in Arizona, now 1.1 million Arizona students will use ESAs, which are it's a fund basically that money can go into. I don't know why the official name is escaping me right now. It's the
empowerment scholarship accounts, right?
There we go. So it's an account that money can actually go into the child's account, and the parents can use it how they see fit. So students who are, their zip codes are, maybe keeps them in a bad school, a DRF school, or maybe they have a disability or something that their district school cannot address. The parents can take that money into another school district, a private school. They could use it for homeschooling to get their child the best education. I think one of the things that hurts us a lot is that public schools typically are sort of created around one specific type of student. And as we all know, I know I have two daughters, they are completely different. So one way to that, there's no one way to educate a child. So giving parents an option to get their children educated, I think is a great thing. So yeah, it was highly supported by Republicans, typical. And the Democrats were like, no, they want the pitchforks out, and they're like, oh, it's so funny with this article. So like, if you read down a little bit, the Democrats they're like, hold on, let me see if I can find it real quick. It says, shoot, I had it marked. It says Democratic lawmakers pointed out provisions that would allow for a, quote, predatory market to take over, and criticized the GOP's attempts to inject accountability into the program. So, they've had basically like a monopoly on the system, and they want to like come in and talk about a predatory market. Like somebody needs to go and talk to these people about some antitrust laws or something. I don't know. But because like a predatory market, are you freaking kidding me? I was just like, yeah.
They're
sure
like gaslighting in 3, 2, 1.
Right. Nonsense. But yeah.
I thought it was interesting too, like just kind of from what I saw from this headline in Arizona. They point out that the highest concentrations of ESA usage actually occur in the most severely economically disadvantaged communities in Arizona. 8 of the 10 districts with the highest share of ESA students statewide have higher than average rates of child poverty. So, you think about really what these could do for the families and for these kids in particular. Man, I mean, like you're unlocking resources for these kids that could really be fantastic and yield much better outcomes for their futures. I think it's exciting to see this. It's interesting too that there's only like 31,000 ESA kids, I guess, around the country right now, from what I can tell. That seems like a very, very low number. So, seeing West Virginia and of course Arizona kind of unlock these resources for parents is super exciting, because it's what, like $6,600 or so per school year or so. Is that about it?
Yeah. And, probably a lot of that money like won't even be used. When it comes to homeschooling, like when I homeschool, and you don't use nearly as much. So it's actually saving money, to educate your child. So yeah, I mean, it's not gonna work like that in a private school because of tuitions are higher. But yeah, it's gonna be hugely beneficial for families who their zip code has sort of put them into a lock them out really of a good education. It's really unfortunate. So yeah, this is really exciting. I have some work. I think we're going to go around and talk about some different things. So I do have some more comments on this, but I will let Zach go ahead for now.
I really wanted to get in on this one, Keisha, because yeah, it's an amazing victory out there in Arizona. But even more than that, because you see it, I think Adam mentioned it before, Arizona, West Virginia, I have to throw Florida in there too, Keisha. Big leaders on this front as far as educational freedom and school choice go around the country, and states that have good school choice bills, because we all know there are good school choice bills, there are bad school choice bills.
That's correct.
Yeah, and Keisha, you know better than anyone, we have to protect homeschoolers when these bills come up. But I really think we're beginning to see the end of geographic-based one-size-fits-all education in the United States, where we spend more money and get worse results than many other countries around the world. They always say, just put more money at it, pay the teachers more, give the schools more money, but we're not seeing the return on our investment. So giving people the opportunity to act in a market where you're selecting schools based on, what fits best for you, I think that can't possibly be a bad thing.
Right. And that's why it's so laughable about this predatory market. It's like, you guys have you not seen the scores of basically kids across the country that cannot read? They're literally graduating children that cannot read. And you want to talk about a predatory market? Like, you can't even do the job that we have literally hired for you to do. And you it's
absurd.
Insane. And you still get paid. Like, you can still keep your job. Like, where on earth in
it's
any
crazy.
other industry does that exist?
Well, I'm thinking too, and I don't know if we're ready to jump to my topic or not, but speaking of them keeping their jobs and paying themselves an absorbent amount of money, I'm thinking of the McKinney Independent School District superintendent who's paying himself $345,000 a year to trample on the First Amendment rights of parents. It's absurd. These people are overpaid to do such a bad job. If you put them in the private sector, man, they'd be fired in a heartbeat, right? It's crazy to see what happens when these tyrants kind of abuse their positions of authority to do bad things to our kids and to our communities, really.
That's why they stay in government, because that's
exactly.
The only place you can do it.
You can get away with that when you work for a monopoly and have a insured job. But
Hello.
Adam, I think that was a great segue into your topic. If you want to
Awesome.
tell us a bit more about what's going on in Texas, silencing parents.
Yeah,
Always.
sometimes the headlines that you read out of Texas and Florida, but you read these headlines and you're just like, no, not here. But from the Texas scorecard, this week, actually tonight, June 28th, the McKinney Independent School District will consider using its District of Innovation status, quote unquote, to exempt itself from state laws governing how attendees at school events are treated by district officials. The McKinney ISD board is literally going to vote to amend the district's local innovation plan to include an exemption that authorizes district staff to remove parents or visitors whose behavior is deemed inappropriate without warning or notice. Now, if you remember, this is the school district that was sued just a few weeks ago by an attorney named Paul Davis for literally stomping on parental free speech. This is a school board that is just so out of control. They're using the police to eject concerned parents from meetings. They're placing unconstitutional restraints on the First Amendment rights by disallowing signs, clapping, comments, even failing to observe their own rules for decorum in public meetings. It's a school board like others that have literally weaponized their positions. And also, too, the school resource officers to attack parents expressing concerns about things like curriculum and sexually explicit material in the libraries, like nothing to see here. Just shut up those parents and we'll be fine, right? This District of Innovation concept, it was passed here in Texas in 2015, and it gives traditional independent school districts the most really just flexibility to kind of have the same flexibilities that your charter schools have. They're innovation plans that really kind of are about local control. So it gives flexibilities to independent school districts that might include things like school start dates, the 90% attendance rule, class size ratios, and in this case, apparently also flexibilities from the US Constitution, from the First Amendment. So we have incumbents here that are up for election in May of 2023, including the school board president, this absolute tyrant named Amy Dankel. And these people have to be kicked out, man. We have to oust these people. They're incumbents right now. So it's going to be a tall battle, but we got to start working now to get people that actually represent the needs of our kids and our parents ASAP.
Yeah, this is insane. You forget that, you're thinking like Texas. You're like, cool, I'm safe. You're like,
Yeah.
whew. But it's like, this kind of stuff is so unbelievable. Like, you know what I think happened? I think that the left went to conservative states first to implement these radical like laws and stuff, because they're like, okay, if we can get it in here, then surely we can get it everywhere else. Like, this is insane. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, when back in October of 2021, when parents were called domestic terrorists, literally just for standing up for your child wanting to, first of all, just trying to figure out what the heck is going on, because many of us were still like, wait, what? Like, what is happening here? And then seeing what was happening and saying like, okay, no, we don't want this. We did not hire you to do this. And them turning around and saying, no, thanks. We don't want to hear what you have to say. In fact, you are a domestic terrorist, and I'm going to be have a threat tag from the Department of Justice, the freaking
it's absurd.
The highest level of the United States. Is like, what in the world?
You're like, what does Merrick Garland want with me, right?
Down.
Well, 100%. And that's why you have now 25 states that are literally saying bye to the National School Board Association. Who's next, right? We just got Nebraska. Line them up, man. I mean, these people do not have the best interest of parents and families. And by the way, when you start to go after school board moms, you're going to start to ring the nest of the school board dads, and it's going to be a unified front. Those are going to be some rowdy school board meetings. McKinney tonight is going to be lit. Like, you're going to have some parents there for sure, showing up in force, letting them know what's going on. If I get on the road soon enough, I'll be there.
Well, I hope we don't keep you too long, but I really want to just closing out this topic. We have to dive into the fact that school board elections have never been more important, because there's actually a lot of synergy between both of the topics you guys bring up, Keisha and Adam, because in a lot of states, school boards have the right to approve new charter school development, new charter school contracts.
Yep.
And, the worst of these school boards are going to continuously put up barriers and find excuses not to either initially approve or reauthorize uh, charter schools that create competition for them, and expose the difficulties that the public school system is having in educating our children, and politicking in the classroom. So
Yeah.
it's just so important that we realize that school board elections start early, start now, get involved, and really put in the time to make sure that we have a very different looking school board landscape. Hopefully by 2024, fingers crossed.
Well, and also too, just leverage, right? Like having school choice and having that leverage over these districts, not allowing administrators to pay themselves $345,000 to do a terrible job. Supporting a parent's right to homeschool, supporting your right to choose where your child is educated and what that curriculum includes. Protecting the freaking bathroom, man. Like it's absurd what parents have to really worry about. Like it's already hard enough to be a parent. It's also hard to be a kid. And then when you have people that you trust to guide your kid through their education, a teacher, kind of just going so far off the script, it's a problem. But the script now also takes the form of textbooks and libraries and librarians but at the highest level, leverage. We got to make sure that we maintain our leverage and look out for what's right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, people forget about that too, that kids have it pretty hard. They're walking into these buildings every single day. They're there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And, most parents are not talking about, if you're a lit sexual or whatever. And so the kids are literally like, what? Like what? Like they are having to process all of this. They are the ones that have to sit there and the teacher's woke and all the kids get all rowdy and they're woke and a lot of kids, the majority of the kids, I think, are just like, I don't care about this.
Right.
And so,
right.
but that pressure that they're under to care, to be like an activist, to get activated. And it's such an unfair thing that our children are going through, and on top of just your regular growing up, like you're just like
right.
you're like a girl, like I'm just trying to figure out how to be 13, like I don't
Yeah.
care about your stupid sexuality quiz.
Keisha, you think about like this challenge too, that you have kids who go to the classroom and they know that if they don't answer the questions a certain way, their teacher is just going to fail them, right, or give them a bad grade. But then at home, maybe the child's being taught the truth, right, or the actual history of things. So your kid goes to school trying to game the system because they know that if they don't give it the woke answer, they're going to be failed, right? And so it's like you have like this sort of like parallel reality, this parallel education taking place at the home and then also in the school. And that's not a real way to set a kid up for success, or it shouldn't be, right? It shouldn't be a part of the ingredients that make being a kid difficult.
You shouldn't have to go to there should be a consistency on reality. You shouldn't go to school and get a good dose of like some fantasy land.
Right, exactly.
And when you come home, you have to like deprogram yourself and be like, okay, I'm in reality again. Like
100%.
that is psychotic. That's crazy.
I mean, it just seems to me like they're importing all of the issues that we see in universities. Because, talking about, you don't write the answers, you write to the teacher, you write to the professor, you amend your work in order to fit in with what is usually a very obvious.
And now it's at West Point.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
what could go wrong?
Wait, well, the Health and Human Services director, secretary, or whatever.
Oh,
let's
right.
just start there.
Are you talking about the woman who fathered 2 children? Well,
Yeah. I'm unclear.
I had a little
on the
brain
language.
moment.
I'm
I
not
couldn't
trying
process that.
I know, it's like system overload, right? Like it's enough to shut down the computer.
It's like I am my own grandpa or something like that.
Add order.
Well, yeah, and so I want to move this conversation because we kind of talked about school choice, we talked about school boards. Now let's move it into the classroom. The Attorney General of Missouri, Eric Schmidt, is getting involved and has actually subpoenaed multiple school districts and their administrators as a result of these student health surveys that were administered to the school. And I want to read just a bit of it here. The subpoena gives the district 10 days to produce documents in response to 22 demands that Schmidt asked, including they want to know how the districts obtain parental consent prior to giving students surveys related to political beliefs, mental health issues, religious practices, income, and more. And it also is going after information on the third-party vendors, which I know we talk about this a lot at B.E.S.T, but third-party vendors and their involvement in school districts and promoting a lot of this, mental health related curriculum and additional services that, always have to be monitored by the parents, that is, not by the government. Because what I think this case, I really liked this article because for one, it shows something that good public officials can do in order to fight back against some of these things, or maybe not even fight back, but just ensure that they're being done responsibly. Because, with all of the tragedies that we've seen over the last few months, there is going to be, and is already starting, a major mental health push in the schools. And a lot of that data collection is very suspect. What they do with that data is very suspect.
Facts.
Which parties have control of that data can be very suspect. And this is something that I think kind of doesn't get the attention it deserves all the time, but that parents really need to be involved in. Speaking as someone who's not a parent, but I know I wouldn't want my school collecting information about me over the wishes of my parents, and no one's been informed this whole time. But Keisha, do you have anything?
Yeah, I got a lot to say.
Yes,
Per
bring it.
usual. This is, you talk about government overreach. I was reading a book from 1995 on education, and the same stuff. They had these surveys of basically prying into the private lives of the student, the private lives of the parents, because they will ask, like, "Oh, does your father like spend time with you at home, or what is like the income of your parents and stuff?" And it's like, ooh, why is that any of your business? Like, what does that have to do with educating my child? They are building, and this was from this book that I'm reading. It's called Out-Based Education, but outcome-based education, excuse me. But they build like a file on your child, and it like follows them throughout their entire school year. Now, seeing that was in 1995, and I think some of the data stuff was a little bit older. Now with the internet and with marketing and mobile tracking and all of these things like that, I'm just wondering, like, where are these survey companies passing this information on to? What is this to do? Are you trying to you're basically like building a future customer. That's what I think. I mean, you are building a future customer so you can know exactly how to market to them and basically have them be like your little consumer. I just see this being like, do you guys remember Wally? Like at the end when they were just sitting around, like everybody's just like fat and just eating and nobody does anything or interacts.
The little hover chairs, right?
Yeah, you're just on like the hover chair and you just consume like whatever comes down from like, the experts. And it's awful. It is awful and it needs to be stopped. It is an overreach. It is a gross overreach of government. I mean, this is none of your freaking business.
And it's
Right on.
invasive, highly invasive, the types of questions they're answering. That's
Yes.
actually used in the article multiple times. One thing before I go to you, Adam, I do want to throw this in there as well, if I can find it again. Yes, so the group that brought this lawsuit to the Attorney General's attention is the Southeastern Legal Foundation, which has actually launched a guidebook advising parents on their rights in their children's schools, and has represented multiple different organizations in similar type lawsuits before. But I mean, part of it is about finding the resources to fight back against this kind of stuff, which I know is something that Adam is working with us very closely to help share resources. But do you have anything? Any
Yeah,
thoughts?
well, I 100% agree with everything Keisha's saying. I know that's going to shock everyone, but I mean, she's right on. And these third party vendors, I think, are concerning. They are using your children's data without your consent. They are using that to literally build a digital profile of your child that they will then leverage into that child's adulthood to sell them stuff to, and not just to sell them stuff, but also to sell them ideas. And they know from a very quick early age how to influence your child's thought processes one way or the other. Those third party vendors I'm speaking to, mostly they're big tech vendors. Google is one of the biggest ones, and they have no problem violating laws that are already on the books. COPPA, for one, the Child Online Privacy Protection Act. Google and YouTube have already paid well over $200 million in one particular lawsuit for violating child online privacy protections, literally using data collected through school districts through the devices that they offer. It's like, oh, cool, we have a Chromebook for little Jimmy. Well, what's that Chromebook doing, right? This is also going on around the world. It's not just here in the U.S., but Europe is a big destination for these kind of relationships between big tech, the school organizations and administrations, and then the children and the administrators. So, you think about what could happen if, school districts, or if what could happen when these school districts are sharing data with third parties. And yeah, there's a business purpose behind some of it, which then also creates unfair relationships between school districts and smaller vendors. So there's maybe some antitrust discussions at some point down the road, but more nefarious too, how these school districts are using and leveraging the relationship with these big tech vendors who want these contracts, and how schools can get these vendors to do certain things using their algorithms, using their technology, using their resources to influence what your kids think. The surveys in particular, I think, are concerning too. There might be some HIPAA concerns there specific to some of the mental health check-ins. So from COPPA violations to HIPAA concerns, like who's protecting this data when you're surveying a child and asking them a question like I just came across in this one survey, asking like this kid how they feel about the LGBTQIA plus situation in their schools, and asking these kids like how they feel about their pronouns. I mean, asking like really, like, I would say, leading questions that sort of validate agendas that maybe are contrary to religious freedom. I mean, there's just violations all over.
Oh, yeah, for
No,
sure.
it shocks me that people can just be okay with all of the third party involvement that has just ballooned over the last few years in our education system. I can't help but think if we return to a more classical model of education, where we were focusing on core concepts, educating the child, and getting all of this, emotional, social, political stuff out of the schools, there would just be less need for all of this outside involvement. But who's to say? All right, let's go around closing thoughts, and then because I'm sure we've gone over at this point. But great conversation all around.
Yeah. I would just say, pay attention to what's going on in your child's school. They are there from 8 hours. They are there 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. So that's a long time to entrust them in somebody else's presence. So make sure you know what's going on with your child. Explore school choice if that's not something that that you haven't thought about yet. And homeschooling. I think homeschooling is fantastic. So great conversation, guys.
I totally agree. Homeschooling is a totally viable option. I think some of the things we're seeing out of Arizona and West Virginia and at least 10 other states make that really even more viable of an option than not. But I guess my closing thoughts would just be, we have elections in this country, and for now they're still free for the most part. And so you have to really support those candidates who are going to protect your ideals and your values. And, I'm thinking about in Florida, right? Angelique Contreras, she's got an election in Palm Beach, and she's a great candidate. And there's so many other great candidates that we need to support, because there are so many bad incumbents that we have to fire. Yeah. So, I'm pointing at McKinney ISD tonight. They're like an hour north of me right now. But there are so many others too. And we have to protect our kids. We have to protect our future. And whether it's educating our children at home through viable options and viable programs, or protecting our public schools and doing what we have to do to restore those back to kind of what they used to be and where they should be going forward. Only a certain group of people are going to do it, and it's us.
Yeah, and it's
Absolutely.
it has to be the parents. I think maybe you guys have experienced this as well, but when I first got involved in education policy, in educational freedom and parental choice, the sheer breadth of everything going on, just the size of what we have to tackle here: school boards, school administrators, educational choice, school transparency. It seems like a lot because it is a lot, but it's about being vigilant. It's about getting involved where you can, when you can, and always making sure that your guiding star is parents have the rights over their children to raise them how they see fit and in the educational environment that fits best for them.
Amen.
That's what all these topics
Absolutely.
really get involved in. So I want to take a minute. Thank you so much, Keisha King and Adam Rizzieri, for
Thank you.
joining me today. I know I was a sad, sorry replacement for Laura. She will be back next week.
Zach, you're a viable contender. You did a great job.
Of course, for all of you watching, if you ever want more information or to get involved with the movement, please go to www.parentsknowbest.com. We have resources there. You can join our BEST coalition. Moms, dads, granddads, grandpas, people who care, everyone is welcome. And of course, like, subscribe, and share this video. Thank you both again for joining us, and I'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.